ideology.
Here.
This is
no, hold on. I've got some questions.
No, I have the general point here, which is I think it's characterised. The reaction has been characterised as weak, mealy-mouthed.
Right. Well, that's your view, but let's look at the substance. The 7 countries on the temporary visa suspension list, they're all either terrorist havens or state sponsors of terrorism themselves. They're on a list dating from President Obama in 2015, which he identified as the countries that America was now most at risk at from terrorist attack. What is wrong with issuing temporary bans on these countries until you've tested if your visa system is robust enough?
Because I don't think that rationale stacks up. Obama did identify those countries, did tighten up the visa scheme, but simply to ban all refugees in a blanket ban when refugees...
That's a different ban. I'll come on to the refugee ban in a minute.
Then.
So let's continue. Let's talk about this ban with the 7 countries. I'd like you to... Yeah, but you started answering a different one, so I'm going to bring you back to answer the one that I asked, which is the ban on the 7 failed states. They're essentially failed states, these 7 countries. Now, what is wrong until you are sure that your entry system is robust enough having a 90-day ban?
It's not for me to try and explain or defend Trump's policy, which I detest, but why the rationale is flawed is that the terrorist attacks and the title of this executive order was protection against terrorist attacks in the US. The people who have committed the terrorist attacks in the US have overwhelmingly been US citizens or naturalised citizens. They haven't been from these 7 countries. Now, the most objectionable part of this sweeping...
I'm afraid, again, that's not quite true. There has been a terrorist... Ohio State had a terrorist attack from Somalia. The attack in San Bernardino involved people who had come in from outside the country. Now, what is the difference between what Mr. Trump has done and Mr. Obama did when the FBI discovered that using the refugee process, a number of Iraqis had got in who were terrorist threats to the country?
Well, the difference...
He then tightened up that, but he took 6 months to do it, and the number of Iraqi refugees coming in was reduced to a trickle during that time. What's the difference?
First of all, I said the majority of those people perpetrating the attacks in the US have not been from these countries. Secondly, he tightened up the process. He didn't impose a blanket ban. And what is most objectionable... What is most objectionable about this is the blanket ban for 120 days on all refugees. Now, this is... Why this is internationally... causing such trouble is that it breaks not just sort of fundamental values that we try and uphold alongside the United States, but the very conventions that have been in place to take refugees for more than 60 years.
If you are not sure that your vetting procedures are robust enough, and if, as the case with Mr. Obama had, that Iraqis had been using the refugee process to infiltrate terrorists, and there were 2 arrested in Bowling in Kentucky, and their fingerprints had been found on IEDs. If you found that there's not robust enough, why would you not have a temporary ban? I agree that if a lifetime ban, that's entirely different. Why would you not have a temporary ban until a man who was elected saying that he would introduce extreme vetting has a chance to check the system? What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that is it breaches fundamental, established, decades-old conventions about how in this world we treat refugees, and we don't discriminate against those who are some of the most vetted, validated, checked.
It's temporary. He was elected on a platform of improving the vetting procedure. Why does he not can he not take 120 days to do that?
He could do it in a different way. He could do it like Obama. I fundamentally object to it, and the reaction that people have had. I mean, my real criticism of Theresa May, I think she's
weak. Come on, let's stick with the substance of Mr. Trump.
But John, you have a leader who shares platforms with terrorist organisations who he describes as his friends.
I want to stick to the terror. I'm looking at the substance of the terrorist ban because I want to come on to the state visit in a minute. Hold on.
We're British politicians.
I want to ask you this:
what should Britain be doing?
And
what should our British Prime Minister be doing?
Sorry, Mr. Healey, it's on the basis of the substance of the Trump policy. It seems that you want the state visit to be banned and not to take place. Now, I want to ask you this on the refugees. At the height of the barrel bombing of women and children in Syria, and of chemical weapons being used against them too in Syria, how many Syrian refugees did President Obama allow in?
Andrew, I have no idea.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. In 2012,
no idea.
31.
But this.
In 2013, 36. At the height of the obscenity.
None of us in the Western world have a record to be proud of on Syria over the last few years. This is a question about what Britain should do, our Prime Minister should do, and at least Jeremy Corbyn has had the guts to stand up, like more than 1 million people signing this petition, and say this is not acceptable.
All right, well, let's come back to what Britain should do, because I do emphasise it's on the basis of what you think Mr Trump's policy is, that you don't want the state visit to proceed.